Brandon Garrett, hey, congratulations on your new film, Don't Log Off.
Thank you so much, Gig. We really appreciate it.
Right on son.
You know what? This is one of those films that we enjoy watching in the dark and late night, Friday or Saturday night. But we have to hear from you folks first. What actually sparked you to where the original idea came from for Log Off?
Well, first, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you saying that. That means the world to us, working on something for a number of years. It's just, yeah, it really just fills us with so much joy. So thank you. The spark of this idea honestly came from the circumstance of the COVID-19 lockdown. We were on another project that was supposed to go, and then the nature of the world completely shutting down, that film was paused like many were. And so we were stuck at home and started chatting with friends, trying to think of could we make something? How much longer are we going to be stuck in this? And this film really organically spawned from there. And it was sort of like that throughout the entire process, where because we had no idea what the next day or next week would bring, there were many moments where we had no idea what this film was going to look like, and it was truly just one day at a time. And we are so grateful that it has grown into the project that it has grown into today. So we shot the entire thing during COVID lockdown, and then had incredible partners in post production in Chicago and LA who really were our fairy godmothers and shepherded us through the entire post production process and got us to or allowed us to have some pickup shoots, and that's where we expanded the movie a bit. So yeah, it was this really organic snowball, and we're just so grateful and happy to be here.
That's wonderful, and it's amazing to hear about these pandemic projects. Can you tell us about how you gather that cast so fairly quickly? Because you don't know when that pandemic was going to end, but even though it didn't really end that quickly.
Yeah, so I think what initially jumped out at us was we have a lot of friends, creative. We have a wonderful creative community of friends. Every single one of our friends was nervous about when they were going to work again and also just sort of feel creatively stimulated again. I think we had a lot of friends and we were just having the same conversations over and over and over again, which was, hey, should we do a Zoom reading of something? Hey, do you guys have a new play that you want to hear out loud? We just had a ton of those conversations. We had worked with a number of our cast before doing informal stage readings together, but we had worked with them before on other sort of less formal acting projects. And so over the course of especially the early stages of lockdown, I think we were having those conversations organically. And then the idea struck. We had a friend who had a birthday party, and we were like, this is a freaky set of circumstances that we've all sort of very quickly established as normal. Let's build a project from this seed. And as far as reaching out to cast, it all happened very organically, especially because we had a ton of those pre-existing relationships, and we're having those conversations already.
Now, tell us about the challenges of having your cast be the cameraman to film themselves, especially, I want to say the lighting and the consistency is probably one of the biggest challenges that you guys actually have.
Very much so, Gig. That is hitting the nail on the head. That was one of the hurdles from the get-go, but honestly, one of the most fun challenges because our cast, they're incredible. They've all been working for the vast majority of their lives, and they're incredibly talented, and their technique is just off the charts. And so we were incredibly lucky in that when we were asking them to camera op, to hair and makeup design, to production design, to do all of these things that they're not necessarily used to doing because they've worked so much, they were pros and they handled it so phenomenally. We did have a full production team who were working remotely. So, for instance, our cinematographer, Ben Goodman, he was working with our cast over Zoom, asking them to set their cameras up certain ways. And then because we were interfacing with them through Zoom, the actors would have to send screenshots and test footage to the cinematographer so he could actually check each of the frames. And you can imagine with those larger scenes where we have up to 6 cameras on screen at once, that was a lot of a lot of footage going back and forth and a lot of frames to set up. So it was a huge hurdle, but it was the kind of thing that honestly became pretty fun towards the end because all of our actors were having to slate from home, and it became really cute and fun.
And I think also something that we freed ourselves of pretty early on was we were not interested in the film looking pretty. I think we freed ourselves of having it feel painterly in any type of way. The most effective found footage films, specifically, which we of course look to for inspiration, the most effective found footage films don't necessarily look, shall we say, choreographed. To put things lightly, we all remember the conversation surrounding something, the shining example being Blair Witch. Of course, people being like, "Is this real? Like, what is this?" That is not a staged that does not feel staged. And so we freed ourselves of that, especially because we had conversations with people wandering around their houses in real life, going every which way during that time anyway. So people were already accustomed to accept that type of footage, shall we say.
So in those apartment scenes where each of some of the cast members actually have to like wander and run around, did they film themselves or did you actually have like a one person crew at least in that room with them?
They were filming themselves. We did have crew on site. Those were our very few in-person shoots during the lockdown, which were obviously very just they were tight, they were strict because at that time we weren't allowed to be in person together. So yeah, the protocols were off the charts. Our COVID officer, it was his first movie. Like he had just been trained as a COVID officer like the week before.
Our
So
line
yes,
very closely with SAG as well and helped develop some of that initial protocol. So we were following guidelines very, very closely. And essentially, what we had to do was we had to hide Bran in some broom closet somewhere with the monitor. And I was hidden under some table somewhere listening. And at the end of every take, Bran and I would meet up and I would say, "Did you get the footage you needed?" And he would either nod or shake his head. And he would ask me, "Did I get the audio that I needed?" And at the end of every take, we'd be like, "We either got it or we don't, or we're going again." But we had to hide ourselves around set in
because we're
order.
shooting on GoPros and like GoPros, they only connect certain distances. And so we needed to see the picture in certain. And so it was just this organic, like figure it out on the fly.
Now, explain the screen capture technology that you actually used for this film, because I know a well-known director, Timur, who he does a lot of found footage films, and he developed his own technology to do the screen capture of the computer screens. What did you guys do?
Very good question. So our initial pass of the film was all our own screen recordings with our editor. Shout out to Eric Boat Nielsen, who is a phenomenal editor and who has a few other films coming to theaters this year. Highly recommend you check out his work. And it was truly the three of us, Garrett, Eric, and myself, and we were screen recording our own computers and then using those to build the first cut of the film, which is why we equate it to animation and sort of a wireframe cut, because that first cut was not pretty at all. Because when you're screen recording on just HD and then you're punching in on something, that is very pixelated and not crisp to look at all. And then the way we got that to look crisp was working with our post-production house in Chicago, Periscope Post and Audio. They then rebuilt every frame of the film. So we worked with their team over there, all of their designers, to build out our computer interface. And that is where everything you're talking about really came to life, is we designed
Saying nothing.
every,
Oh, sorry. To say nothing of
yeah.
our cast shooting that actual live footage. I'm sorry for jumping in, Brad. But we had essentially up to six performances at once. We built with Ben, our cinematographer. We essentially built GoPro rigs with a light box that mirrored the size of a phone. So their faces were lit, mirrored basically the shape and weight of a phone with a GoPro on top, a little sound speeder on top. So as authentically as possible, we could send our cast out into the world, around their houses, around their rooms, feeling like they're actually recording themselves. Eric then cut all of those individual performances. So again, up to six at once. He cut each of those performances. And that was essentially the live performance amidst this larger sense of animation. And so we had those two elements fully cooking at once. And we were assembling essentially, several elements at one time, building from the ground up, though.
And I have to ask, as co-directors, how do you handle a cast to talk over each other and shout at the screen all at the same time?
That's so fun. I mean, we come from theater. We've worked in theater, pacing, and that's our favorite thing is working with a group of actors in a room. I mean, that's how we got started, and yeah, it's truly our greatest joy. And so we built a lot of that in the edit. I do have to say is a lot of that overlapping, we did want to push, like we sort of started by talking about, we wanted to push that suspense and the intensity. And so we would shoot versions of it where they were all talking over each other. And imagine the nature of all of them shooting from home, and our sound team, they had really great monitors so that they were able to hear their scene partners, but not themselves, because of course we had to be very careful about the feedback that the mics were picking up when they were shooting from home. And so we would do versions of it where we had them all jumping on top of each other and talking over one another to get that pace. And then we would have to do versions of it where they weren't, so that we had both of them to cut together in post. But yeah, that was one of the other unique challenges of this project, was how do you get people talking over each other on Zoom?
All we cared about was a group of friends feeling like a group of friends. We cut each other off all the time. We are impolite. We are messy. We live our lives unscripted, obviously. And we felt it was more important to capture that than the cleanest, crispest set of dialogue to the T, because we wanted it to feel lived in. And we feel very grateful to our cast for fully inhabiting these roles as well. I think we freed ourselves from feeling like the audio needed to be crisp and perfect as well. Although Austin did a pretty darn good job with that, and Kendall and Post. So we feel nothing but lucky as far as the chemistry our cast has with one another.
Well, both of you done a fine job keeping the found footage industry alive after 25 years. So, hey, thank you very much for speaking to us about Don't Log Off. I can't wait to speak to you guys again on your next project.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
Steve.
Gabe.